Hello, people. How's it going? And yes, there's a reason why I put that book up, and yeah, not the other one. Um, Memorial Day is about remembering people who fought for their country, died for their country, and what they believed in. Whether you agree with why they fought and everything else, they still fought for their country, and they still died for their country. Yes, even for wrong reasons. And then, if they were forced into it, they did what they did. My grandfather William, and I'm English on my mom's side, hence the flag, hence the Doctor Who Union Jack. I do this every Memorial Day. I will wear something English, as I said, something English. It's not tea though; it's chocolate milk. But my grandfather William fought in the Battle of Britain. He fought in the Battle of Britain. He flew Spitfires. I'm always telling people that because I'm very proud of that fact in my history, my heritage, my family tree. I cannot. I love the movie Battle of Britain in the late 1968, I think. But I like that movie. I like the latest movie. I like the movie on Dunkirk. Anytime I see a Spitfire, I think of my grandfather William Wolverton. I'm very proud to be half English or all English sometimes, but I like being English. I have a Union Jack over there too. I have several Union Jacks in here. But I'm very proud of that heritage. I'm very proud of the fact that these band of brothers defended the British Isles against the Nazi onslaught. Before the so-called Operation Sea Lion, which was not going to happen. Sorry there, Goering, to disappoint you. But I think that my grandfather. I wish I had got to know him. I mean, I briefly got to know him through letters, very briefly, and I kind of feel kind of bad that I never got to really know him. I wanted to get to know him. He seemed like quite the interesting guy to me, anyway. I take after him because I have hair, and even when I think it was in his 80s, I think he still had hair, lots of hair. But I wish I had got to know him better. But I'm very proud of that heritage of being an Englishman, even though I don't look like an Englishman. Um, I think like one a lot of times. But I think Memorial Day is about remembering those people who lived and died for their country, who lived and died for an idea, justly or unjustly. A lot of them did not want to go off and kill other people. We've got to realize that a lot of wars are started by people behind desks and important titles sending other people to go fight their battles for them. That is what war is all about. But I take great pride in thinking about what my grandfather did, what he did for England, what he did for his country, his family, my mom, and this, that, and the other. And I'm very proud of that. I'm also very proud to have known this guy, Yogi Pusch. Yes, he fought on the German side of World War II, on the Russian front. This is his book. He wrote this book. I want to read a little bit of what it is. He was born May 18th, 1923. So if he were still alive, he'd be 101. He was Prussian, and it's very possible the man is still alive. Prussians, you don't kill Prussians easily. He grew up teaching farm in Ryan District Liggitz. Private school in Nensky, served in the German Army 1 year POW in 1940-1946. Let's see, let me think. 1941 to 44, undertaking Barbarossa with Central Army in Russia. 1944, homeward bound because of wound. 1945 to 1946, POW, U.S. Helped rebuild the Maine Airport. Let's see, 1951, left for here. 1952, got married. 1991, he retired from Minnesota Community College System. He went to the U of M. He had a lot of interesting stories. Yogi was fascinating. He was an interesting guy. I used to sit there and listen to him telling these stories, and I'm thinking, I'm sitting across from a guy who marched into Russia, survived all of that. And I just found that fascinating. I found it very interesting. Let's see, what else? He was at Bialystok, Minsk. He was at the Battle of Molessk. Battle for Skira Russa. Okay, I just have to show this. I can't read some of these names. Hopefully you can see that. I'm going to assume you can't. That's it. I mean, I'm very. Yes, I know. He was a German soldier fighting for the Nazis. All the other stuff. He fought for his country. I mean, he fought for a corrupt dictator. I get that. But after being around Yogi for so long, I cannot watch World War II movies the same. I cannot watch World War II movies and see the Germans as all bad guys. Because I met Yogi. Yogi may have been a lot of things, but he was a nice guy. He loved to go hunting. He was a fisherman. He had lots of cool stories. I mean, he had a big family. I mean, he was a very nice guy to me. Come on, I'm Jewish. A Jewish guy being friends with a German who used to fight in the Russian front. That's a little odd. Fun and cool. But I mean, this is a cool book. It's a self-published book. I mean, probably not very many of those out there, but that is him. But we had a friendship, and I think that's important. I think my grandfather and him would have probably gotten along pretty well in talking about war stories. Yogi did not have a problem with talking about the war. But one thing I noticed about Yogi was he was not hesitant to talk about his experiences. Do I think he told me every single thing that he did? No. Who tells everything they did really in a memoir? Of course they're going to leave things out. Do I think Yogi was this perfect German soldier? Probably not. But then again, not some of the Americans, not some of the English, not some of the French, not any other army. You name me a war or an army. It had perfect beings fighting in it, and I'll be telling you you're lying to me. But I liked knowing Yogi. I got to know Yogi as like I wanted to know my grandfather. I wanted to know who my grandfather was. I don't know anything. I know very little, I should say. He was born in South Africa. He was English. Somewhere way back, well, not very far back, maybe 100 or so years, I do have a Scottish grandmother. I mean, I found Yogi. I loved his stories. He loved westerns, by the way. He loved reading his westerns, and every once in a while, I'd have to explain to him what a word meant because he didn't understand it. It's American colloquialism. So, but I liked it. I liked talking to the man. I appreciated the fact that I was sitting across from someone who lived in a very historical moment in history. He fought in the Second World War. He fought against the Russians. He was on the other side. I mean, I know it only means something to me, I think. I think it only means something to me that Yogi and I got along so well. We were friends. We talked about all kinds of... I would kid him about fighting in the war, him losing. I wouldn't say that, though. I would be more humorous at it. But I did like to tease him. He didn't like Rommel. He thought Rommel was overrated. He did, believe me. He thought Rommel was overrated. Don't get me started on Rommel. Don't get him started on Rommel. But I did. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed his stories about hunting and fishing. His stories about his family. His stories about just him living his life as a POW. You think Hogan's Heroes was false? He literally did a few Hogan's Hero things. He was a POW who knew what he was doing, and he deliberately surrendered to the Americans because he knew better than to surrender to the Russians. But I am very proud to have known Yogi. I'm very proud to have known this German soldier who fought on the wrong side in a war that never should have started in the first place, and was part of a tyrannical system of exterminating Jewish people and pretty much anybody else they didn't like. But it never dawned on me to ever think that Yogi ever did any of that. Not to a degree that I could not be his friend. I liked him. Do I think Yogi is perfect and he didn't do something he doesn't want to talk about? Yeah, maybe. Maybe, but I got to know him as a person. I think in a lot of ways, the reason Yogi's friendship with me was important to me is I didn't get to know my grandfather. I mean, they had a connection. They both fought in the Second World War. They were on the opposite sides of a war. They were fighting each other. Well, you know what I mean. And I find that fascinating. And I'm sitting across from a man who, well, around years it is now, that would have, we were enemies at that point. And now we're sitting there chatting away about westerns and books and other odds and ends. But he was an interesting guy. I mean, I do, and I miss him. I miss him because he was a great guy, and I liked him. I liked his friendship. I liked him because in a lot of ways, I think I got out of him what I didn't get with my grandfather. My grandfather, to me, is a hero. And whether you like it or not, in my mind, Yogi's a hero. He served his country. Whether he served it for the right reasons or not, I don't care. The man did what he did. The war is over. And I think my grandfather would agree the war is over. Okay? Enough's enough. I mean, yeah, maybe he did. Maybe he was in some atrocity. Who knows? I don't know. And a part of me is like, okay, if he did it, he did it. I have no evidence to the contrary that he didn't do anything or he did do something. But after a while, I literally could not watch war movies, World War II movies, without seeing Yogi, without seeing him there as Hickey. Was he one of those good Germans? Was he one of those Germans just doing this because it was his duty to do it, and he did it? Because I can't watch World War II movies anymore the same way. After being around Yogi for so long, I can't watch these movies and see them all as the bad guys, which is probably a good thing, because they weren't all the bad guys. Just like not all the Americans or the English or the French or anybody else were the good guys. But anyway, see, I don't have a problem with we're talking about Yogi on Memorial Day when you're supposed to talk about people who served their country and died for their country. He serves his country, just like my grandfather served my country. I mean, I think it's different in a way for me because I think it's because of what war it was. That might be the nuance or the problem, or how some other people may see it. I do not see Yogi as an enemy. I never saw him as an enemy in the first place. I cannot visualize him as an enemy. I cannot visualize him as a Nazi. I cannot visualize him as a Gestapo. I cannot visualize him as the Death's Heads guy over and all that other crap on the Nazi Party. All I ever saw of Yogi was this old man who was 40 years older than I am. This old man who survived the war, was a POW, came to this country, made a life for himself. If I remember correctly, the agricultural department, who built himself a life here, who enjoyed hunting, he enjoyed outdoor stuff, sports. He loved books. He liked westerns. He showed up when we met. I met him when he showed up. Oh, excuse me. When he came for the military history group meetings, when there was a military history group, and that's where I met you. In fact, the book we were discussing was Showalter's book on Rommel and Patton, if I remember correctly. He was comparing the two, Rommel and Patton, I believe, if I remember correctly. I know it was a Showalter book, but we met. That's where we met, and he would show up. I don't know whether he knew or how he knew or whatever, but he would eventually he'd always show up on Saturday when I was at Barnes and Noble in Roseville, Minnesota. I was always going to Roseville, Minnesota on Saturdays, and after a while, when I met him, I believe I invited him. I'm here on Saturdays. You're welcome to come and sit with me, and he did for years, for at least. I'm going to say 10 years. It was probably a little more than that, but on average, I think it was about 10 years. He would just show up every Saturday, and we would sit there and just be old buddies. And other people from the history group would show up too, like Andrew and Nathan and Joel. And let's see, am I missing somebody? I'm probably missing somebody. But those are usually the main people who would always show up. Maybe the core members would be those four usually. Be me, Andrew, Nathan, and Yogi. And every once in a while, Joel and his wife. And the black and white cat is out. I miss that history group. I miss that history group meetings. They were so much fun. COVID destroyed once COVID basically made it impossible to meet up. The history group just disappeared, and it's a shame because I really did enjoy that. 1 day out of the month on a Wednesday, we'd all meet at Barnes and Noble. Let's see. Do I have any other decent photographs of Hair Yogi? More pictures of Yogi. I'm trying to get first even. Yeah, how do you know he wasn't a war criminal? Well, I don't. And I don't care. I got to know the person. I know that sounds contradictory to my Jewish nature, that I should care, and I know I probably should. But I got to know the man. I like him. I liked him. He was a friend. He was Yogi. I'm sorry. To me, he was a friend who just happened to fight on the wrong side of the war. And my grandfather fought on the right side of the war. And I wish the two men had met, because I think I was just sitting there listening to them talk about their war stories, their war experiences. And Yogi did not mind talking about them. I mean, he had a lot of interesting stories. He fought up to the Battle of Moscow. That's where he was. He was in Moscow. He was in the, he has it written down. 14th Infantry Division, motorized, our 14th Artillery Regiment, forward observer. That's what Yogi was. Well, there we go. That's the information. I did this already, but let's just look at the chronology anyway. Yeah. Where's the part where it's born? Wasn't this on here? There it is, born up there. Born May 18th, 1923. Where he lives now, or where he used to live, is now part of Poland. Something he's, and he's always, let's just say that he had problems with the way the Germans were treated and the way the Japanese at the time are not treated as badly. And he did have a point. The Japanese were just as bad. The Imperial Japanese during that time were just as bad as the Nazis were. And it really bothered him. And I understood why. And I would tell him, I understand why. It makes sense. The Germans were treated worse. It's almost as if the Japanese didn't do anything. Well, they did. They did a lot of things just as bad, or not worse, the Germans did. But anyway, I mean, I am never going to deny my friendship with him. He will always be. I will always consider him one of those friendships that I will always value and always appreciate, because he really did teach me a lot, and he really did change my view of when I watch war movies or even documentaries. I can't watch them anymore without seeing Yogi, and I'm thinking they weren't all bad. They were just in a very bad situation for some of them. But anyway, this is from my grandfather William, who fought in the RAF in the Battle of Britain, and I think he might have been a night fighter as well, but I haven't heard anything about that yet. I'll ask Mom. And my friend Yogi. Well, I don't have a book to recommend because unfortunately there's Battle of Britain books, I guess. But this book, unfortunately, is out of print now because it's one of the few that's left. But share the video, comment, like, subscribe. Behave yourselves, people, because you know I'm not going to. Later.